Hey, everybody, it's Christian Buckley doing another MVP Buzz Chat, and I'm talking today with Mona. Hello.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, I have the first question I have to ask is, since you've brought us into your living room, I love your piano. It's
Mhm.
like the most common background that
I
I'm
know
like
it's
seeing now.
everyone's,
It's
yeah,
like everybody's buying that piano. What's
I
going
know.
on?
Very
No, but
fun.
for folks that don't know you, Mona, who are you? Where are you? And what do you do?
Yeah, so my name is Mona Ghadiri. I'm a senior director of product management at BlueVoyant. We're Microsoft's #1 security partner when it comes to SIM and XDR and operationalizing Microsoft's security stack into a security operations program. I'm based in Brooklyn, and I have a double MVP in both SIM and XDR and cloud security.
Very cool. And I always like to get some detail because now that Microsoft has they've created these larger and larger buckets around the MVPs and over in the security area. It's not my area, but it's
Mhm.
always great to get a little more, expose into like what's involved with that, what products and features are kind of the latest things that you're tracking, talking about, what exciting things Microsoft is doing that you are super passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. Microsoft has been on a spectacular journey, specifically around security. You might have heard of the Secure Future Initiative and other things that Microsoft has really been doing to double down not only on their own internal cybersecurity, but building more cybersecurity things into the entire suite, right, of Microsoft products, right, or the entire portfolio, if you will. Part of that has been about making sure that is more telemetry, right? So how do we get better signals from things that we didn't used to get things from? And how do we push detections from things that we've had for email for 10 years into Teams, for example, right? Something I know that's more near and dear to your heart these days, right?
Mhm.
We've also seen a huge push in this idea of consolidation, right? In security, everyone still goes somewhere else to buy Word and somewhere to buy Microsoft Excel and somewhere else to buy PowerPoint. And we all know in the Microsoft world that there's a better way to think about those as a suite that inform each other that actually help a worker do their jobs, right? And so what we've seen in this world of cloud security and this idea of SIM, and you might have heard of Splunk or Wiz, right, which is in the news because of their acquisition with Google, right? This idea of consolidation or bringing these other security tools under one platform, right, is really the North Star of Microsoft's security vision and something we're really excited about at BlueVoyant because we see the ideas of taking transformation that have happened in other places, whether that's cloud transformation or digital transformation, and bringing that to security specifically and bringing their security tools through a similar digital transformation kind of process. The last thing that I'm super excited about is Microsoft's work around threat intelligence and AI, which is really kind of this intersection of Security Copilot, some acquisitions from Risk IQ and Microsoft's own Microsoft MSRC, the research center, a lot of the analysts and folks at Microsoft who are actively trying to protect Microsoft against bad guys,
Yeah.
and Microsoft's own DART team, right? So that's their incident response teams. And what we've been seeing, right, is that as AI is starting to grow, the applications using Security Copilot, embedded experiences within security.microsoft.com or the Entra portal or these other kinds of things are really bringing the same embedded Copilot experiences that you may know or love in other places in Microsoft into the very same security tools in the very same kind of suite style of architecture, with really the goal to increase productivity and reduce the amount of friction that exists in somebody trying to get their job done, regardless of what they're trying to do, which I think is really in pursuit of Microsoft's main mission.
Yeah. I just was thinking too, as we were talking before we started recording about product roles and kind of changing backgrounds. It's really been since 2001 when I took over a product management role for a SaaS. And that was kind of the era when the invention of the acronym SaaS kind of came online. And so we had a dedicated hosted collaboration platform. Um, Worked on that for several years, but the in my interactions with customer companies, the number one topic when you ask, okay, what are your concerns? What are the things that you're thinking about? What's number one? Security has been number one every
Hmm.
year. Every
Hmm.
analyst firm, it's the top
Yep.
of the list. Like they could be thinking about AI. I tell you, security is ahead of AI, even today. But of course, it expands the security concerns of all the AI stuff that's out there.
Hmm.
Microsoft saw a huge shift after Satya took over as CEO, and then they very quickly kind of shut down even partner or vendor access, like to
Mm,
buildings. So physical
mhm,
security, like that side of it. But have
mhm,
also really been tightening security around all the applications.
mhm.
And I mean, I have to believe it was driven purely by the fact that they were being challenged by, well, hackers
Secure
and
by design. This is
out there.
exactly it,
Right.
Christian, right? There's there in the Secure Future Initiative, right? There's this idea of operate securely, which is where I live and breathe. But you're absolutely right. This idea of securing by design or default to the secure way of doing things, I think, is transformational, both for security nerds like myself who dabble in architecture and Azure platform things, right? Or you think about M365 engineers who are used to thinking about Entra built-in roles and now have so many different ways to PIM up or use other PAM solutions or thinking about ways to even build conditional access policies, right, are going to change, right, with how things are happening with I think we are in such an amazing place to kind of reassess what secure by design means, especially if you're a Microsoft user who's using Microsoft tools and you are be a part of one of the next transformations, right, which is this how do we transform for AI. And I think there's so many things that we all know that we can bring in this transformation to really make it extraordinary.
Well, there's two areas where I think companies make, again, in my experience, where they make a mistake. One, there was always a lot of concern. I think we're pretty much over the hump on it, but was moving to the cloud. That somehow,
Mm.
if we still own our data, if we own our systems,
We
we're
can keep
better
it
off.
protected better, yeah, than
Right. There's
anybody
that
else.
discussion, like which could be the case if you've got the team, and most organizations that thought that even 10 years ago were incorrect in their assessment there. I mean, the other side of it is the another mistake, especially as a collaboration guy and working with people that are working with Microsoft 365 entire suite or Windows 365, is thinking, well, Microsoft is doing all the secure stuff so that we don't have to do the thinking about that.
Mm.
I don't know if you run into that
Oh
idea.
yeah, all the time. I mean, our CEO at BlueVoyant was the COO of a major company for a long time, and they were spending upwards of $500,000 on cybersecurity annually just to staff it and build it and protect it and do a good job. And who has that kind of money, right? Very few organizations make that kind of money, let alone can spend that kind of money. So what we've seen, and I think this is where I'm the most excited, right, is in this idea that security is a team sport, right? It's not going to ever be about an autonomous answer or Microsoft taking responsibility for it or a partner taking responsibility for it. It's a bigger problem than any of those one places because we live in a world where we have to be thinking about what we in security call threat informed defense, designed for the things that have either already happened,
Yeah.
right? And make sure they can't happen again, right? Or make sure that you're considering protecting yourself against things that have a higher likelihood of happening than those that don't, right? So this is in very stark difference from, thinking about a compliance, kind of placemat style, like, do I have all my bingo chips in the right spot, right? It's not so much about coverage and demonstration of total coverage, but how good is the coverage you have against the things that are most likely to happen to you,
Yeah.
which I think is where it's what an amazing time to be alive in cybersecurity because I think the older ways of kind of thinking about trying to see if you have enough coverage really don't answer the mail on what's happening today for most of us, right? The things that we have in cover are not the things that the bad actors are necessarily going to go and do because they have the same coverage maps as anybody else.
Well, I think
But you know
the
better
whole
than
model
anyone
of,
else is what you want to
I,
protect.
I mean, the
Yeah.
whole like security as a service, for vendors that are going out, the
Mhm.
partners that are providing that,
And
it made
everyone's
total
doing
sense
it.
because it's constantly
I mean,
evolving.
just look, yeah, I mean, Sophos did their, acquisition of SecureWorks, right? Where they're bringing in this idea of a managed service offering, right? You can look at some of the reasons why other competitors or other folks out there like CrowdStrike have been doing a good job because they sell things like Falcon Complete. You can see Microsoft doing the same thing around, Defender Experts or other, sort of augmentary services that Microsoft is, trying to provide. But like, regardless of the way that you look at it, this line of what is the tool's responsibility versus what are the people's responsibility and what is the responsibility of the organization to the people or vice versa is changing significantly. I'm not sure if you know this, Christian, but some of the best rules in the world for when your identities are leaked, or actually for if you're an employee of a company.
Yeah.
You're way, way better protected against, if your company is the one that's responsible for leaking it than if you are, or if it's a business to consumer type of thing, just from a law and protections perspective. So if that
That's a
isn't an
great
indicator
point.
of how these things are changing, right? Even things like identity theft and fraud and those types of things, companies are having to take more seriously. We even have a service at BlueVoyant that's specifically focused just on social impersonations and people doing, fake domains and taking those domains down, where that wasn't really as much of a concern to most CISOs 5 years ago.
Yeah. No, that's interesting where that perspective switch there. Like over my entire career, I mean, I've been to so many, I mean, every year there's various
How many letters have you
technical
gotten in the
business
mail?
platforms around
Yeah.
security, like that side of it, but never addressing like, well, what if your company is the one that's making the mistakes? I mean, I look, like I talk a
Why is
lot
it
about,
that their protections are better as an employee than us as
right.
individuals, is or us
Well,
as consumers, right?
right.
Is certainly something I think that is something that people, at least in security, are really starting to talk about more, for
Well,
sure.
that is something like as an independent, I mean, I have my environment, and I have like the Microsoft systems out there, but I mean, just something as simple as like my email services through M365, and I've got other and through my hoster and kind of those things. And I'm not welcoming anybody to get creative against my environments, but I'm amazed at looking through the reports and the logs, like how the numbers have gone up.
Oh my
The
god, how many people
attempts
are
at,
jiggling your door handle? Absolutely, right?
constantly.
Constantly, and
Well,
they aren't even
it doesn't
they don't
help
even really
that
have to try.
it doesn't help that 2, 3 times a year I get a letter from some vendor somewhere like, "Oh, there was a breach and your data was part of that."
Yep, but you're a
Uh,
consumer, right? You're not
yeah,
an employee, right? In those cases, and that's why I think, like, man, like people, if you have an opportunity to think about or advocate for things at a state or a corporate or international level, right? These sorts of things about identity and how identity and security relate to your risk or the blast radius of something bad happening to me or you versus somebody who is super duper mega important, is really, really different.
yeah.
And I think it's such a huge opportunity for us as practitioners to step back and say, well, what is our responsibility in that kind of identity world? Because it's everybody's responsibility. It's not just security people. It's not
Right.
just, the SharePoint admins who care about who can change or modify content. It
I
turns
mean,
out
and
everyone has the
certainly,
same problem.
yeah, I mean, well, certainly white collar workers at the over the last even 5 years have become more aware of that and take but, is again as an independent. I mean, I'm acutely aware of and having had some SMB clients of the cost, the impact to individuals and smaller companies
Hmm.
is 10x the damage to a large
It'll put you out of
enterprise.
business. Oh
Right.
yeah, absolutely. It'll put you out of business, 100%. I mean, you can even see that. I mean, there was a company that was doing DNA testing for your heritage. That I won't say what the company was, but their board recently, right, is basically resigned, right? And it's not a coincidence that within the previous year there was a massive data breach associated with that organization,
Yeah.
right? And so, like, who and what you decide to give your personal information to is just as much and should be, a vendor security decision as much as it is about whether you want that widget or you think that that convenience really, is worth it. So,
Yeah.
this is a cybersecurity human talking to, people out there in the world. There's always something that you can be doing or gather from this and do immediately. But that would definitely be that, and definitely lock your credit scores if you haven't already locked it with the three bureaus.
No, it's one of those things where, yeah, you always hear those vendors that are like around. Hearing more and more of the commercials around like your mortgage protection because that
Mhm.
scam of people going in and
Mhm.
suddenly find out that somebody's been using your name and now
Mhm.
owns your house or has sold your house or something. I mean, those kinds of issues around individuals because
Mhm.
it's happening more and more and more. And so
Mhm.
something as simple as going in and like in my environment, like I had a problem where I got hacked, where I took multi-factor, turned it off because I was working on something and it was acting on that,
Mm.
and I was trying to playing with
Mhm.
a third party tool, and somebody came in right there. Now it was a demo system; they got access to nothing, but I got the email like, "We have all your data." I'm like, "You got nothing here."
Sure, but it was enough
Like,
to at least send the shiver down your spine for 5 seconds, distract you from whatever you were doing, and, potentially having the ability to ruin your day if you aren't as professional like you are, right?
right,
Getting that sort of notification, right? And those types of things, there've been horrific, awful things that all types of people have done, being worried that other people have, yeah, manipulated their identities or whatever. But I think we're in a greater place, a better place than we've ever been, right? In terms of being able to both detect those things and also be aware from your point, like an education perspective.
yeah,
I don't think there's anybody out there in the world, who doesn't know someone who has had either their credit card frauded or, some sort of other things, right? Because it's more lucrative to sell credit cards on the internet than it is to sell drugs.
yeah,
What do you expect, from people to do, right? So I think, when we talk about what opportunities there are, to take advantage of, cybersecurity or the type of money that's involved. Some people say cybersecurity never makes you any money; it's just a liability. I would argue that cybersecurity actually will make you a ton of money if
right,
you do it well and you find ways to bring that message into your overall message that you're selling, whatever it is that you're selling. To your point, cybersecurity and whether you care about this stuff or think about this stuff matters, whether you're a small business, you're an independent contractor, you're working for a Microsoft partner, or you're employed by a multinational business. It really doesn't matter.
yeah. Well, now I do always like to ask too, since we usually ask it towards the beginning, but we've had a great conversation around what you're doing. But so I like to share kind of origin stories because that's actually one of the
Mm.
most common questions. You join the MVP program, people in your network start coming around and asking that question, like, how did you do it? Is it something I can get involved in as well? But what's your origin story? Like, how did you hear about the program, first get involved with the MVP program?
Yeah, I actually have to thank the Microsoft Customer Connection program for most of my first kind of forays into this. When I started working on Microsoft products, it was right around when Sentinel came out and Microsoft Defender ATP came out, right? So it was a new opportunity for cybersecurity folks who maybe were doing other cybersecurity things and not Microsoft ones to kind of jump over the fence. And I've always been an early adopter, always been a human guinea pig, type of person. And the opportunity to start engaging with not only the tools and their output, but to talk to the people building them was so meta for me because I was a product manager. And here I was, a product manager, talking to other product managers about how to better get our customers, our collective customers, to a better place. And I kind of fell in love with this idea that I could be a champion for customers who don't have the time to
Mhm.
participate in the program, but who were part of our consortium as our MDR customers, and use that as a means to start influencing Microsoft products in ways that help customers who either buy an MDR service or who have feedback that they want to give back to Microsoft around things that are in public preview or are just gone GA, right? Because Microsoft really changed their tune, I think, in the last couple of years about how they do engagement with partners and also with end users. And it was through that program and getting the opportunity to work with a couple of different Microsoft groups, whether they were the global black belts or the global partner solutions team. And I started saying, how do you get that? How do you figure that out? And everyone who I talked to, I was just like, how do I get that? How did you do the submissions? What's happening with all these programs? And
Yeah.
I found out that you have to get this nomination, and the nomination usually has to come from someone within Microsoft or another MVP. And so I had reached out to actually one of the leaders of the customer connection program. And I said, listen, I have gotten every badge you can get in this thing. I'm one of the top 10 contributors in the world and the customer connection program. I really want the opportunity to be nominated for this program. And she said, I can nominate you, but I can tell you that just product feedback on its own is not enough to get you
Yeah.
into the program,
Yep.
which I thought was so important, right? Because it partially was like, oh, I got more
Were
homework I got to
were you
do.
involved in other, like, technical communities, user groups, things like that
No,
historically?
actually,
Okay.
all of those came after I got involved with the customer connection program because everything that I've learned and everything I've done has been kind of self guided.
Yeah.
And because I was a cybersecurity person and there wasn't very much cybersecurity stuff out there, you go to these forums, right?
Yeah.
And cybersecurity new stuff with Microsoft was, it's such a place where everyone was going to the forums and trying to get the same types of answers. And so not only were we giving feedback to the product teams, we were helping each other. And I was like, this is amazing. This is why I came into cybersecurity, because it is about the consortium.
Yeah.
Everyone trying to do this on their own is going to spend $400 million a year themselves. That's a waste. We can work together and do this better. And what I realized is, actually at the same time I was on this message of we could work together, we could do it better, Microsoft was changing their entire product and their entire portfolio to say, hey, if we work together, we could do this better. And
Yeah.
so I realized that the same message was ready for prime time, and I began giving lots of talks and getting engaged, doing Gartner talks and more public speaking engagements, between the intersection of this idea that this world is colliding, our worlds are all colliding, we have to make some decisions, we have to change, and this idea of doing things the same way isn't an option for someone like me who never did it the old way.
Yeah.
Right. I came into this, within the last 10 years, I came into this in a cloud native type of way. And I don't have, the traditional background that you would expect someone in security to have, even because I wasn't a network engineer. I was an operating systems person who was adulterating the operating systems for the United States government for a while. And so I think from my perspective, when I look at, my journey, right, I came at it from a product informed perspective, but
Mhm.
I really have been an evangelist, at least in the security world, to say that doing this combined world, this SIM and XDR thing, this combining the things that are happening in the cloud and cloud security with the things that are happening with our workstations and our endpoints, is the future. And I think that's really what has propelled me, even further into the program, is because this idea of a security operations program even goes beyond, what Microsoft is talking about now. And over the last year, I feel like it's even changed now more, because I've been working with Security Copilot, and I'm one of the preeminent scholars around Security Copilot and building prompt books and developing and using Security Copilot for SOC operations. And so again, it's always been that, like, how far are you willing to lean in? How much are you willing to help teach people?
Yeah.
And then over the last year, I've really gotten involved with like user groups like Zero to Hero. I'm on the board for that one. And then also Microsoft's MS Farsi, which is focused on Persian language speakers and getting them more involved in Microsoft stuff.
Well, I'll tell you that the Security Copilot has got to be one of the more exciting areas. Not there's a lot of there's a lot of exciting stuff happening around, especially around Copilot activities, but on the security side, because it's kind of like the broader business intelligence space, for it just is made for AI to come in and improve that and
Yes.
provide where normal humans that are not coders to be able to use natural
Yes.
language and get insights out of complex data. Like, that's the dream, that's the vision. Like
Mm-hmm.
initially when Microsoft started demoing Copilot and talking about it, some of the best demos were the Excel demos, which none of it was a reality yet. They were demos, they were built for that and for those answers. But again, that idea that you're going to be able to democratize business intelligence by using Copilot against
Yeah, threat
complex data set,
intelligence should be easier to
exactly the
interact
same.
with.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
should be easier to bring this idea of detections and this idea of, where am I on my threat informed defense journey better in concert with each other. And there's so much expertise and decision tree based logic, or, discriminatory, types of decisions that need to be made in order to actually narrow down the data set enough to get to those decisions. I mean, Christian, you are spot on. It is as much of a problem about disparate data in different places and different schemas, and how do we do structured and unstructured data, like all of that stuff is exactly the same in cybersecurity. It just happens to be domain specific. It happens to have like a little bit of a trauma emergency room kind of vibe to it that you probably aren't as comfortable with if you're doing IT or help desk type stuff. But my background before I got into cybersecurity was all in like manufacturing and manufacturing
Mhm.
system design. I like to call it like how people decided to make a Subway sandwich. Everything's in a particular order. Did you ever
Mhm.
realize you don't pick the bread at the end?
Right.
In cybersecurity, people are still picking the bread at the end instead of picking the bread at the beginning, right? And so there's such an opportunity to go through this kind of optimization process or lean tools, like we talked about in manufacturing, right? Where this like lean revolution happened, kind of in a first wave. But it's really time to kind of do that same thing again, just with digital systems instead of physical systems, and really think about how we can optimize and automate some of those collection or synthesis problems in better ways than we've been doing before.
Well, I love these topics. That again, I could talk for a while around the manufacturing sector and that side of
Mhm.
it. Yeah, because yeah, I worked on again some fun projects back then, and I've not been able to get back into that sector. Not a whole lot. There's a few. I know it was in the collaboration space. It was one of the slowest to adopt over into hosted SharePoint and things. But a lot of the old PLM platforms and vendors and things that if you're
Same
familiar.
concept. Yep. It
Yeah,
was a revitalization, recentralization, plug all the things into together into the manufacturing plants. So the
yep,
invoices come in, that generates the work order, that generates this. But yeah, I mean, it's a very, very, very similar thing that's happening in cybersecurity. And yeah, I mean, I could
yeah.
talk all day, but I know you got other places to be
Yeah,
and
no, it's yeah.
amazing
There's always a
people.
lot going on. No, I like, and hopefully we can connect next week. So at Summit,
Yes.
if I see you, I know there's a lot. There's thousands of people that are there floating around. But if I see you, let's make sure that we
Oh,
say
there's
hello
only
to a
one
selfie.
Mona. You'll find me, I
Yeah,
promise. I'm hanging out probably with the security folks, but I really would love the opportunity to connect with you or anyone else who's listening in. A friendly face in cybersecurity is never a bad friend to have.
I always like to say it's like everybody's out on LinkedIn. Or like, is that the best place to reach you? Are you
Yep.
active in other social
Yeah,
platforms
I would
where?
say LinkedIn is the best place to find me. And yeah, if you ever want to interact in the Microsoft cybersecurity world, most of us are pretty much on LinkedIn. Some of us are on Blue Sky, but yeah, I would say mostly LinkedIn.
I know a lot of security folks. Sorry to extend this a little bit, but are they're not able to go out and blog and other things around there. Like, do you have like a blog? Do you have other site where you out are sharing ideas out there in general, or is it mostly in like the forums and through LinkedIn?
I do a lot of like user group talks and other sorts of presentations that I talk about on my LinkedIn. I'm a big proponent of women in cybersecurity, and so I've been doing a lot of partnerships with women in cyber, Hacker and Heels, a couple of other more like women centric cybersecurity
Mhm.
platforms, but definitely try to spread the love equally and find ways to engage with people wherever they are. But I don't have a personal blog. Most of the stuff I have either is on other people's. I try to find people where they're already listening, right, like here.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, you can find other blogs from me on BlueVoyant's website or on my LinkedIn.
Very cool. Well, hey, thanks again for taking the time to come
Oh, it
talk.
was great. Thank you so much, Christian. It was a pleasure to chat with you.